Welcome back to Everse Chat 2019 Season 2. This episode is brought to you by the New Year's resolutions we'll all keep for about the next 2 weeks.
Everse Chat.
And we are back. It's been a very great Christmas break. I don't know about for you guys. It's been an experience. So if you don't notice, the sound quality is a lot better. I ended up getting a new kind of recording setup here for Christmas. So that was really, really special. And thanks, Dad. Aside from that, I took a lot of time off, got some of my day job work done, have a bunch of new stories for you guys, which is kind of the reason I took a break, just to work and get some stories for story time. I have some really good ones for you. So as you will see, Everse Chat is a kind of a 11 episode sprint. Then we'll take a break. I'll actually work for a little bit, and then I get back and get to tell you guys all the fun stuff that goes on. A quick update before we get into today's topic. I traveled a little bit, went to a very exotic place called New Mexico. I don't know if you've heard about it before. It was great. It was great. Got to spend some time with my wife's family. We spent about 10 days down there. And then when I got back home, I got my new bow. I am so excited to shoot. So I'll probably go do that sometime today after I get done with this episode. It's cool. So I'll have to, if you guys follow me on my personal or Instagram, I'll have to post some pictures of it. It's sweet. Like I said, it's all about following your passions. Bows are my passion, and I just got like a brass-plated gold gunmetal looks like a revolver, but it's a bow. It's sweet. Anyways, enough nerding out. So today we are going to be talking about social activism in entrepreneurship. A lot of people may say, oh, well, hey, that's why a lot of people get into it, but not all the time. Some people are in it for the money. Some people are in it to make a definitive change. We saw that with our previous guest, Merle, and with our current guest, Wayne. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, we're here with Wayne Watts of Dream, Create, Inspire, and about 30 different other things. So before we get into our topic of the day, I'm going to let him take some time to introduce himself. So, Wayne?
What's up, y'all? So my name is Wayne Watts, member of the Dream, Create, Inspire team. So I would say musician, social activist, just if one word to describe me, really just be a creator. Super excited to be on the podcast. Avid listener. I always want to use the word avid listener, but avid listener. I'm super excited to chop it up with you.
All right, Wayne, thanks for that introduction. And thanks for coming here today, too. So talking about social activism, I guess we're gonna touch on that a little bit harder than some of the other things today, especially when it comes to being an entrepreneur, especially being a Black male entrepreneur. There aren't a lot of those, and since a lot of your social activism is in education, I want to try not to pigeonhole you here, but a lot of it's in education. You just told me that it was 2%?
Yeah.
2% of 2% of Black males are in education or something like that. Can you kind of go into that a little bit more?
Yep. So African American males only make up 2% of educators. So I mean, that in itself, is a different dynamic when you're looking to be, have your footprint in education, and when you're thinking about the policies that get rolled out, like only having us represent 2%, and that's just in being in education. That's not in leadership roles as well too.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting statistic, and I mean, I would endeavor to say that 2% is probably a little bit greater in just the entrepreneurship and whatnot, but not far behind. I'm really interested to see what the statistics would be there, but still, when you talk about whether it's policy, whether it's this concept of professionalism, whatever it is, where you have these normative pressures on a group of leaders or whoever, how that affects us and how that affects just the decision making, one's ability to thrive in that situation. So what do you think about that? Do you have any differing opinions or views or more insight maybe?
I would say because of the lack of representation, it then sometimes plays into not an authentic viewpoint of the African American male experience, which then limits sometimes real conversations on change and changing policies, right? Because I think if we're not represented that way, and having that type of opportunities to be a change agent as much as just being working within it, I think it makes the system have these false images of what that looks like, to be African American male in any industry, honestly.
So, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're talking about this underrepresentation being something that kind of spurs or inspires or promotes, I guess I could say, the perpetuation of stereotypes, just based on a limited sample size. Maybe is that kind of what you're saying? Oh, okay. So is it? What do you think are the implications for that? Just personally, being a creative person, being someone that wants to get out there and create something completely different that's never been seen, and you have to approach someone and say, "Hey, this is my idea." Does that come into play ever?
I think, me personally, I would say it comes into play, but I kind of look at it like I have an advantage because being a minority in that I'm able to read things completely different. I think we have a skill set that wasn't necessarily promoted in education. You see what I'm saying? Like that we pick up that allows us to really read rooms well. So I would say that in itself is, I would say, one of the biggest advantages in a system that's full of disadvantages for us.
No, I guess that's a really good point that, and I hope people that are listening kind of pick up on that too, that you can choose to look at it as a total disadvantage, or you can look at things that in ways you've had to grow and thrive in order to survive that maybe others haven't, that end up being sort of like a superpower, kind of like what you're saying. And when I think of it, yeah, that is kind of a superpower where you go into a room and and you pick up on those nonverbal cues, and you're able to work around those before people that are actually giving off those cues know what's going on. So you do have a kind of a prescient advantage there, of knowing what may be said before what is said. Just thinking back to some negotiations of my own that definitely came into play with my brother and I, and we ended up winning it was a pretty big contract, kind of based off of that, of just being able to head some things off at the pass and get things going. So I think that's a really salient point there, that it could be a superpower in some cases.
Absolutely. I think, and that's one of the things I think is amazing about us building our connections out, right? Because I feel like once we get an opportunity to kind of use these platforms, right, to kind of connect and whoever's inspired by this is able to say like, yo, I like that. Let's get coffee, or yo, let's link on those type of things. I think once you do that, get a chance to kind of see, hey, how important knowing what your superpower is when you're bringing to a room, and also then I would say the next step is then connecting with other superheroes, right? Like it's the X-Men. So I mean, like it wasn't like the X-Men make up a small percentage of the population, you know what I'm saying, in comics, but I mean it's powerful. So I would say when we do link up, it's sort of like X-Men.
Okay, so for someone who's just starting out that hasn't yet discovered their superpower yet, what would you suggest? You know, if you know they're used to being in the, I would say the norm for a black person, whether it's female, male, or just a person of color, because it extends way past our own experience of being black men, but just people of color. How would you encourage them to discover and explore their superpower in a safe and effective way, so that they know it's not just all bad and there's something to be had in being other?
I would probably say the thing that makes you different the most is probably the one to kind of look into and see what that can bring out, right? Like I have a homegirl who's on Broadway, right? Araya Michael, who's essentially telling students, oh, she's the shortest one in the room, right? Like she was like, I'm like 5'2", but when I step into a room, I feel 5'11". But she uses that, like being the shortest one, to like navigate rooms. You know what I mean? Like, so I would say those things that normally would be looked at as like, oh, that's a bad thing, really tapping into what that is. And then why do people comment on that a lot? You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like in that, you can kind of tap into being able to use that in your advantage on how you navigate certain situations. And that can be from an accent, right? Like I would say some things that pick up would be like an accent, you know what I'm saying? Or like slang, whatever it is in business settings or whatever industry, and kind of looking at how you stand out, and tapping into how to maximize you standing out.
Okay, always words of wisdom there. So here's a concept that I've probably always struggled with is, and I think I've had a few barbs in my past podcasts about it, but here it is in its entirety, is the concept of professionalism. When it comes to being an entrepreneur, when it comes to being a creative person, doing something different and bringing it to the masses, or even at a local level, I've always found that I'm in this constant struggle with the concept of professionalism and being myself, and my whole background of what I know to be right, wrong, whatever, versus this constantly thrown about word. Oh, that's not professional. Oh, they were very professional. Oh, I work with professionals, or I am a professional. What do you think about that concept, and maybe its origins or its place, just in general?
I think the concept of professional, I have air quotes next to it, is a lot based in norms that have been developed from a lot of outdated systems, right? I mean, because if you think about that, like if you say professional, right? Did Steve Jobs dress professional? Like did Bill Gates dress professional? Was Walt Disney professional in how he conducted it? You know what I'm saying? I guess and I'm not saying that from just dress or language, but I think when you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, it's a slippery slope between being quote unquote following all the norms and then also being yourself. I think it's really being honing in on what your brand is, and then your brand being professional, right? Like, I mean, Eric Thomas is a motivational speaker. He comes in and speaks to, Fortune 500 companies with a fitted on in his own in a t-shirt. You know what I'm saying? Russell Simmons owned Fat Farm and Def Jam. I mean, all of that type of stuff started and came in, make sure he was strategic to have hats on and jeans on. You know what I'm saying? Puff has his own everything, and that so like, but they're professional. So I think it depends on if you want to be an influencer and changing what professional looks like. And I think not saying that everybody has to take up that role. I think for me, I'm from West Baltimore. I want to make sure that I'm authentic in my professionalism. You know what I'm saying? So I want you to be able to get who I am, but not using that to say, hey, I'm not professional. I want to show you what it really looks like to be professional, not just to fake like it's professional.
Okay, so this is a point that my wife and I consistently go back and forth on, where I kind of side with what you're saying, that professionalism lies in the work itself and not necessarily the presentation of the work, or presentation of the person doing the work.
To clarify, I don't necessarily mean that. I mean you have to find what, as an entrepreneur, you have to define what professionalism looks like for your brand. Like that's what I mean. Like, so I'm not saying like, hey, you still are professional. You're defining what, just like how you like, this is my mission statement, this is my vision statement, this is what we want to portray here. Like at Google, right? It's Google non-professional. Like I went to down in Boulder and took a bunch of students down there to see that, and they had nap pods in a library that was made out of Harry Potter. You know what I mean? Like a Harry Potter story, and like in an arcade. Like, but that's in the most. I mean, Google is one of the richest companies to ever live. You know what I mean? To ever be made, not live, because that would be wild if they could actually live. But you know what I'm saying? But saying that to say, that's what I meant in terms of professional.
Okay, so it's about, for you, it's about defining it for yourself rather than letting it be defined. Okay, yeah. So this came from, I think, I have this Lucky T-shirt, right? Where anytime I have anything big to do, I always wear this T-shirt. Even if it's under a shirt, I always wear it, and it's a Captain America shirt. It's just like a little $7 Walmart Captain America shirt. It's on. If I'm doing something big, it's on. You better believe it's on. And she hates it. She's like, that's not professional. What if they'll know? What if they know that you have the shirt on? Will that change anything? I'm like, well, for me, no, because I view it as, one, it's a shirt. Two, if they're going to judge me over this shirt, then I probably shouldn't be doing business with them. And three, it's a shirt, even though that's point number one. But just seeing, even outside of that, which is just small potatoes, when I worked at Marriott, that was a big thing. They would always say that I was not professional because I would talk to the guests that would come up just as I would talk to any other person. I wouldn't do anything special. They had all these like weird hand gestures, and it just seemed very inauthentic. And going back to my whole thing of being a terrible employee, this is probably why. But they would constantly say, "Oh, it's not professional. It's not professional to talk to a person and say hi." And that it was just something that I always struggled with, and I think over time I just kind of grew to not like that concept, because like you're saying, professionalism lies in how you define it and the value that you ultimately bring and bring to that, whatever it is. So like Russell Simmons, yes, any other person walking down the street, you cannot tell whether, if they're wearing a fitted hat or whatnot, if they're a professional. But in his sphere, that is his actual brand. Those are his actual products that he's wearing, and he's showing the efficacy or the universality of what he's doing.
I mean, I agree with what you were saying on that. I think based on the Marriott example that you gave, I think why it didn't work was because your mission statement wasn't the same as their mission statement. Your core beliefs wasn't the same as their core beliefs. So I would say for anyone that's an entrepreneur or wants to become an entrepreneur, I would say while you're still working your 9 to 5, try to align with companies that are closer to what your mission statement is. Your personal mission statement, but also what your mission statement of your company would be. Because, I mean, when you think about that, like, that would make more sense for sponsorships, that would make more sense for investors, like, lining up with those. I think the thing that happens is sometimes when chasing the money to be able to start your own business, you take jobs that take you further away from your mission, and that, cognitive dissonance, if you will, for real, like really messes with you. You know what I'm saying? You're like, yo, I don't believe in any of this. That's not what that looks like. But if you're looking to define what professionalism is for you, that would be the closest is working with companies that did that. Another thing I kind of wanted to say in terms of the Captain America, shout out Captain America. I think we shouting out all comics right now. But saying that to say, I think that's what those type of stories are iconic. You know what I mean? Like, I think when you hear those, I mean, that's kind of like Steve Jobs' glasses, or I mean, like, or these little nuanced things that people did in business that you just do. You know what I mean? And I think that's so. I think honoring who that is and wearing that shirt underneath of it, because when you're giving a TED talk in the next 10 years, you'll have kids buying all these Captain America shirts, and maybe you can get a check from Captain America from it. See what I'm saying? Shout out to them.
Yeah, so I guess that's one of those things where it's just like, you're an entrepreneur, or you're a creative person if these things, because I think the truth is some people don't really care about that. They're just kind of like, all right, well, if that's not professional, let me know what is, and I'll do that, because this is my goal. And I think that's the world needs both. The world needs people to define it, and the world needs people to follow it as well. So I think that's a very valid point thing to point out, that it is just a matter of what vibes with you and what you're willing to accept.
So tying that back into education, that's why it's so important to have more African American males in education, because I feel like when you do that, you normalize new ways of professionalism early on. And you open up what I would say is you open up a lens to show different ways of articulating your point on how you present. I think that becomes part of standards, right? Like in different assessments. So I think assessments change, like standards change, which actually makes it easier for the next generation from all walks, not just African American males, but like from different minorities, from the majority, from all of that, to be able to have that in what professionalism looks like. Because I think then you get a better viewpoint, vantage point, as opposed to these things that you were knocked for in school. But if you're able to kind of like work on personal branding more, and what that looks like, it actually opens up for better business like conversations and better business practices along the lines of that.
Yeah, very valid point. So, like I put everybody else on the spot, I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm going to let you take over story time this time. So, whatever story you want to tell, the rules are, if you're naming somebody, change the name or change the company. But other than that, it's Wayne Watts and story time.
All right, so my story would be the creation of Firelink Fridays. So Firelink Fridays is an online mentoring resource for curated for students of color to be able to see young leaders of color across the country. So the funny thing is how this whole started was because I didn't have mentors, like in the flesh. Like I was doing a mentoring program for Goodwill Industries of Denver. Shout out to them. And I was doing a Men at Work group. So I had young men of color in the classes, and I went to recruit mentors and I couldn't find them. And I'm like, yo, I have no mentors, right? Then I had like 3 mentors, but they were all out of the demographic of the students I was working with. And I'm like, man, I can't get any young mentors of color to come at this time. So I was like, yo, what do I do? So I thought about it. My first manager in terms of music was worked at ESPN. Shout out to JJ West. So I called him like, yo, JJ, would you be down to speak to my students via online, on the internet? You know what I'm saying? And he said, yeah. So we did that. And for this Men at Work program, I was stationed for 2 to 3 different schools. So I did it for one school and was like, man, well, I don't know if I can get JJ to talk to all my students, so we have to come up with something. So through that, we came up with the next one by asking students, hey, what else do you want to know about? So they said, hey, the internet. So JJ introduced me to a guy, TJ at the shoulder, shout out to him. at Twitter, and he happened to be he has like the coolest sports job of all time. Like shout out to him, literally the coolest sports job. He manages all the U.S. sports partnerships and accounts for Twitter. So I mean, he's one of the reasons why they have the Twitter live sports feed to watch live games is through him. So he was in London at the time. He spoke to my students, but I had students from each school submit questions, and it was great because you can see him shouting them out, and they got a chance to do that. Fast forward. With that being said, we've done about like 15 and 16 different episodes. We've done Twitter, Rock Nation, Snapchat. When we launched the Dream Create Inspire Tour, we'll be taking Firelane Fridays on the road. And then as a result of the work that I did on Firelane Fridays, I'm now doing some consulting work in DPS, growing out a program that would be in the line of online exploration. So I would say my story is, resourcefulness is what breeds creativity. So like it's always when you like, y'all don't know what I'm supposed to do, that's when that comes up of doing it. So I would say really utilizing that for your superpower. And that's my story. Hey.
All right, that was story time with Wayne Watts. All right, we're gonna go ahead and collectively start shutting up. Yeah, it's a heavier topic today, and we could have went a lot more into it. And maybe one of these days you can come back and we can do a part 2, Wayne. But for now, we're gonna wrap up and give you an opportunity to any shout outs, any social media handles you may have. Go ahead and let people know.
Bet. All right, so my name is Wayne Watts. You can follow me on Instagram at DK, aka Wayne Watts. I'm part of the Dream Create Inspire tour. So Dream Create Inspire is a social connections tour. We raised $15,000 successfully on Kickstarter. So we'll be doing an 8-city, 8-school, 8-access service tour. So if you're interested in volunteering and knowing more about it, please follow us at Dream Create Inspire Tour on Instagram and also on Facebook. And yeah, looking to see you guys out on the tour. As far as music-wise, I'm an artist, so if you want to check out some of my music, it's on Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere that you stream music. MySpace if you're weird, I guess. I don't know. I don't think it's on there, but just type in Wayne Watts. The album is called Nowadays. Just really want to thank you, bro, for having this. Like, this is kind of lit, being on the podcast. Because your first sponsorship when you was like, and my cat is brought to you by my cat. That was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. So, thank you for letting me be a part of this, for real.
All right, and that was my interview with Wayne Watts of the Dream Create Inspire Tour, which is now underway this year. I am so excited for this new season of EVC with all my new equipment. You don't have to hear any of that popping or shuffling or hissing anymore, besides me flailing my arms around like I'm a crazy person. But let me know what you guys think of the quality. Please send me any sort of message, DM. If it's like anything else, how season 1 was, you guys will probably just text me or find some weird way to reach out to me through somebody else. But if you feel like being convenienced, you can always leave a comment. I always appreciate likes. And yeah, so whatever is easiest for you. One thing I'm toying around with this season is introducing a new kind of tangent of lifestyle segments. So I don't know quite if I want to do this yet, but I just found, actually, while recording and mixing this episode, I found a camera, like a GoPro, that I bought, and it was sitting on my desk under a stack of like taxes or something, and I was putting it together while I was mixing this. But I'm like, wow, I could do stuff with this. I can like put it on my car and, I don't know, do some donuts, or probably not, or more likely put it on a bow and go shooting and talk and shoot or something like that, other than just you sitting here listening to my voice. So let me know what you think. I'm pretty open. If you guys want to do some live streams, let me know. I'm all down for it. So once again, leave a comment. Always appreciate likes and subscriptions. other than that, it is time for me to go. So I will talk to you guys later. Bye.